All right, welcome to our prep for the next reseller intensive program. We are discussing the 12-week year. This is part 2 of a series, and Jason is leading us. Jason, just give us a quick introduction if they missed the first one.
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? We're doing a little book study here. The idea is just to introduce this 12-week year, give you plenty of time to consider whether this is something you want to do in 2026 as you're starting to think about what would I want to be different in 2026. So we're doing a little three-part book study just to introduce this idea, and then through consignment chats, there is a group that's going to do it together. If you think that would help you, you can follow up on that and get some more information.
Yep. And I'm Libby. I am part of 1/3 of Consignment Chats, and I'm following along. I'm in the middle of year 4, doing this. I've done this 12-week year 4 times, and it's been just an incredible game changer for those of us that are participating. And I encourage you to check out the show notes if you missed part 1. It is there in the show notes. Link it up, and I also encourage you to join our Patreon group and join our Lunch and Learn. We're doing this also in our Patreon group as like an informal Zoom session where we can chat about actual real applications, and you can talk to people that have been through this, and you can get introduced to the 12-week year. So those links are both in the show notes. Use them both. Okay, let's get started on part 2, Jason.
All right, this includes some really good stuff, so I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah.
So, as Libby mentioned last week, we talked about the first kind of part of the book and laid out sort of the premises. So you can obviously go back and watch the YouTube video or get caught up on that. But just to kind of start off, if you're new and just catching this video, we don't want to jump way ahead and just assume you know everything. So the idea of the 12-week year is basically an execution system that's going to allow you to get more done in 12 weeks than what some people get done in a whole year. And we're going to do that by focusing on a very small group of goals, maybe 1 to 3 goals. And you're
Hmm.
going to create some very actionable daily tactics, weekly tactics that are going to help you achieve those goals. And we're also going to have a whole wraparound group here that's going to help you with this. They call that a WAM. We'll get to that next week. And you're going to score yourself and get a lot of feedback on whether or not you are making progress. And yeah, so again, you can go back and watch the video, but that's kind of the basics of it.
All right. All right.
All right.
Let's get into it.
I know. Here we go. Here we go. So we said even last week we said that the 12-week year is an execution system, and again to kind of go back a little bit, we're getting away from the idea of having a yearly plan or yearly goals that are more about what you're going to do but not as much about how you're going to get it done. And that's why we frame it as sort of an execution system because we spend a lot more time in the 12-week year focused on how you're going to get this done with daily and weekly tactics. And so the authors of the book lay out 3 principles that they kind of say are the foundation, if you will. One of those is accountability. And this is something we talked about last week. In the 12-week year, we believe that you are the only person who can hold yourself accountable. Libby has this cute quote that they have about the baby. What's the baby thing?
Oh, you can hold a baby and you can hold a bag of groceries, but you can't hold someone else accountable.
Boom, perfect.
Glad I
So you can hold.
remembered that.
I know. Well, you rounded it off last week so perfectly, so I figured you had it memorized. I'm glad you did. Uh, the next one is commitment, and so you're going to commit to these goals, and part of that, again, as we mentioned, is this idea of a weekly check-in that we're going to have, where you're going to let us know how you've hold yourself accountable, how you've scored on all your items, and then the final piece is greatness in the moment. Which, as I was
Yes.
getting ready for this, I told Libby that's something I think we might need to spend a little more time on because I think it's very impactful for how this actually works. So skip ahead to the next slide, Libby. Let's spend a little minute talking about greatness in the moment.
Yeah.
All right, I love some of this, and I want you to give me an example in a second. But
Hmm.
the authors would say that greatness is not an event; it's a habit. You don't suddenly become great at the end of a 12-week cycle or when you hit a big goal. You achieve greatness by making the right choices and executing key actions in each moment of your day. Um, and it's kind of that decision moment, like say for example, for me, one thing I've noticed is in the morning if the decision moment is this, and I know Atomic Habits is a very popular book, like lots and lots of people have read this book, Atomic Habits by
Mhm.
James Clear. One of the things that you might say about this decision point is, and being great in the moment is, literally, if I put on my workout tennis shoes instead of my normal shoes I wear, that decision will then lead me to, instead of driving to work after I get my son to the bus, I'll drive to the Y. It's like that. Then in that moment, I have made the decision by putting on the sneakers instead of
Mhm.
the regular shoes to go and get my exercise done. And that's one of my keystone activities. Again, something we mentioned last week. Um, Libby, what's an example for you
Yeah,
of being of the greatness in the moment? It can be
I
really
I've thought
small.
about this so much, the greatness in the moment thing, and one of the ways I started thinking about it was, there's a description of, let's say, like Michael Phelps, let's say, Olympic athletes, like people that are operating at that level. The greatness doesn't happen the minute they win that gold medal or they're, staring at that goal. The greatness happens every morning when they got up to practice, every afternoon when they didn't feel like it. That's where the greatness is happening. It's not in the actual reaching of the goal. It's in all those little actions that we take along the way. And for me, like my example, and I anchor myself with this all the time, is it happens in the moment when I'm looking at that tactic. Like, all right, I need to list, $700 in inventory today. That's where the greatness happens. It doesn't happen when my sales are, X. It happens like in that moment when I'm actually doing the listings. That's where the magic happens. It's not in the reaching of the goal. It's in that moment and in those activities. So I anchor myself with this with every single tactic I have, every single one. Yeah. Cuz it's hard when we're staring at a goal, right? Like the goal, and then, the other side of this might be too getting too far ahead, but the other side of this is, if you've ever set a goal and reached it, there's that other side of it. Yeah, it feels really good for about what, maybe a day. Maybe a day, like we revel in that. And then you get this wah, right? Like we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really celebrating that and really realizing, like, that's where it is. That's where the magic happens, is in that moment, in those tactics, in those daily actions, not in the actual goal. Yeah. So, yeah.
That's why I wanted to slow down and spend a little bit of time talking about this because I think
Yeah.
this is so important. If you think about how normally when you're setting up your annual goals, you're thinking about the, the sort of end result, right? I want to have
Mhm.
this much in sales. I want to be able to go from part-time to full-time. I want to lose this much weight, whatever it is. You focus on
Mhm.
that. But you have totally lost the game if you're thinking about that. It's like
Mhm.
you've got to start with doing these small daily actions that are going to build and compound on each other to get you closer to that goal. That's the greatness in the moment. It's these little things. And the good thing about this too is they're easy to do. How hard is it for me to put on my workout shorts instead of a pair of pants, or put
Mhm.
on, or for you to well, it now for me, getting out of bed on time is difficult. That is a hard decision when you're like got the snooze button and all that. uh
Mhm.
I have to work on being more greater in the moment when it comes to getting up early.
Well, that's the thing. We all have things. Like, I love that. Like, the next point here is, every moment is a choice point. And
Mhm.
we saw this a lot when we read The Slight Edge. I think at some point, like the members of our book club, we decided to think about, or some of us wrote down, every choice we made over the course of a day. And there are a lot of choices that we think are that we just go through and think are not choices, right? Like, there's so much sovereignty we have that we don't even realize, like, how many choices we make throughout the day. And this kind of opens your eyes to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's keep going. I've got some other ideas, and
Yeah.
I could spend so much more time on this, but we'll
Hey.
keep it moving. All right, this one's kind of fun, y'all. So this is another one of those things where the authors have spent some time, obviously studying other people in these fields to learn about changing habits, which is a big topic in lots of literature that's out there for self-help type stuff. But they have this thing that they spend a little bit of time on that we have lived through. As Libby said, one reason why we're doing this is we are on our fourth year in 2025. We broke it up and we're in Q4, so we're doing the fourth year, and we have seen all this, and it's real, y'all. It's real.
It's so is real.
So the emotional cycle of change. But here's the trick: as long as you understand this is going to happen, and especially in our group we have that's very supportive, it's been okay. All of us have had these struggles, but then we can easily point to it. So let me just define this, because again, this is all new to many people watching this video. So the first one, uninformed optimism. It's like, hooray! You imagine all of the benefits and none of the costs. This is kind of what happens at the very beginning when you're drafting your plan and making your goals. It's like, oh, my when I'm wearing a bathing suit this summer, won't I look so much better when I'm lost, this much weight or whatever. But you have not paid the price yet. So it's this uninformed optimism. I'm going to talk about the next one, and then I'm going to Libby take the Valley of Despair. That's our fun one. The next one is informed pessimism, and this is kind of your negative, where you have all the benefits, where you have not seen the benefits. The benefits are kind of distant, but the cost is real. Like, you're having to do the hard things, but achieving the goal is way out in the future, and that's begins to be a bit of a struggle. And I'm gonna let Libby. Our favorite is one is Valley of Despair. We like calling people out when they're in the Valley of Despair. Well, Libby dropped off for a second. There, she's back.
Did
All right,
you
Libby, let you have Valley of Despair. Let you pick it up there.
All right. Hold on. I am in the middle of, like a mini snowstorm here, so,
Oh wow, fun.
I didn't think I would have any issues, but we'll work through it. All right, you did the uninformed optimism where we go in so excited, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
All right.
and
The
then the next
valley
one we
of
start to
despair.
sort of
Yeah.
realize that, oh, this is work, but I'm not seeing any of the goals, and then we get to the Valley of Despair.
The Valley of Despair, and it was so funny at one point. One of our members, just made I guess it was kind of a Freudian slip, like the Valley of Death, she had called it, because I mean, it really does feel like that. Where you don't know how you're going to do it. It's hard. The excitement is over. It's just a little bump, like and we all saw it, and it's I think in this respect, having the WAM, the weekly accountability meetings, was really great to see that other people were kind of in the same place, or maybe they entered the same place, the next week, and they saw everybody, pull through, and it is possible, and we got this. I think being surrounded by that is so helpful, to know that everybody else is kind of like, oh yeah, this is hard, this is tough. And yeah, that's what kind of have with the Valley of Despair slash death. Yeah, it feels like that. Like you're digging yourself out, and can you do this for the next couple weeks? And is it really possible? And but wait, it's a valley. And guess what's on the other side of that valley? The mountain you're gonna climb.
Yeah, and a lot of people, of course, this is the point at which they quit, and you can think about this is a perfect example of people having New Year's resolutions. You can kind of imagine uninformed optimism. I have this New Year's resolution. It's going to be great. And then
Hmm.
you start doing whatever it is. Normally it's like exercise, whatever, whatever. And it's like you're not seeing much results. And then when you get down in that valley, that's where 95% of the people kind of just quit and pitter out because they don't see the results. It's too hard. And they sort of give up and throw their hands up. And so hopefully with this 12-week year model that we're doing, you have the support to kind of keep you going.
Hmm.
Um, the other side of that, as Libby said, is where you do start to see the benefits. You've done enough of these daily actions and they're building and compounding, and you start to see the results that you want. Then you start to get a little more optimism. And I'll tell you, I have actually really seen this myself. One of my 12-week year goals was to experiment with the Whatnot platform, something that I had done one show back in 2024. Last year, I did one show, and this quarter, I wanted to bring it back. And so I have actually seen that I've done it once, one show a week, and it's been going pretty well. And so I really feel like I'm in that stage 4 right now where I'm starting to see the benefits. It's still hard work, but I'm just energized by making the wins and getting better. So that's how I've sort of felt about that. And then the final one is just, you know, when the benefits are fully experienced and you're on the other side of this and the costs of what you had to go through, it's easy to forget all those mornings you woke up and went to the gym or all those extra time you put in getting your listings up or whatever, once you're on the other side of it.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. And,
Yeah.
like without the 12-week year, it's very easy, like Jason said, to stop in that valley of despair, right? Very, very easy. But like when you have this plan and this execution system, not so easy to stop. When you're surrounded by people that are walking the same walk and really doing that, like you can see it does pull you forward. Like I think that is one of the saving grace and being aware of that, right? Like this is going to happen. This happens to everybody is just brilliant. This is one of my favorite parts of the book because I can tell you the things I would have given up on in that valley of despair without this program are, yeah, a lot. I'm fairly good at giving up on things. Um,
I'll add one more thing about that before we move on to
yeah.
vision is just that I think that, one of the things I would say to people is in the 12-week year, we really want you to set what a realistic stretch goal. So, for example, I think a better goal for a lot of us would be to lose 5 pounds instead of saying I'm going to lose 25 pounds.
Mhm.
And so you're much less likely to kind of fall off if you can see the incremental change toward that and you don't have this proverbial mountain to climb. So
Mhm.
anyways, but let's move on to vision because you and I love talking about vision.
Love vision.
um,
Yeah.
one of our funny things there. So think about your vision for, in of course, vision we talked about last week, so I won't beat this one too much, but think of an example of someone who maybe is a reseller and they're a part-time reseller. They have a part-time or full-time job, they're the 9 to 5, if you will, and they're doing this on the side. And maybe their goal for different life reasons is they want to pull back from that 9 to 5 and make reselling their full-time job. That would be a great example of sort of a vision. You could build that into your vision of what you would want the future to look like.
Mhm.
Maybe this is like a 3-year vision that you have, and then once you build that aspiration and that goal that you can see in the future, then your 12-week year is going to be little slices that are going to get you to that. You can kind of think of a 3-year plan. That's actually 12 years in this model we're using, and so you can kind of build towards that. So let's talk about vision. I know, again, this is something you and I love to talk about,
Mhm.
but you have to have a why. And so that's why I was saying about the idea of a 3-year future plan that you're going to, come home to be with your kids, to be with your spouse, or, whatever your situation is. Then it has to connect with you. You have to have a why there, because without that emotional connection, the vision is really not going to have any meaning to you. It can't be something that is imposed upon you by someone else. It has to be really what you want your life to be. And for a lot of people, they haven't really articulated that. They haven't written that down. They haven't pulled that together. Um, so I'm going on, Libby. But why don't you answer this question for me? I love this little simple thing. Ask what if. That is such, like, to me, that's like the beginning of this whole thing of vision. What if?
What if, like, visions can be so expansive, right? Like there's no limitations when you do your vision statement. It is what you dream of, what you want. Like don't limit yourself. Put it out there and, what if? What if this all works out? What if I can become a full-time reseller? What if I can, maintain part-time reselling and use this to pay my bills or have a better lifestyle than I currently have? What if? Like what is that vision? And to go back to this, I think it goes back to greatness in the moment because do I feel like being great in the moment? No, about 50% of the time, I don't feel like being great in the moment, but I look up at my vision and I think, all right, this is where I'm headed. This is why I'm doing it. This is why this hour really matters that I put the work in, because this is how I'm living and this is what I want. I think it goes back. I think it's much easier to have greatness in the moment when you have a strong vision, because all those moments, guess what? You're not going to feel like being great, but you might if you look at your vision statement. Yeah.
The next question then becomes, ask, how might I? Once you see what you want, then the next question becomes, how could I begin to manifest those things in my life, create that vision? And I can't forget to read this quote that I put in the slide. If you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
Mhm.
So it's a little bit of some of the other books that we have read that talk about you really have to believe in yourself and believe that this is what you're going to have. I think the word they used in one of the books we read was manifestation. You have to like bring it to life. Like this has to be important. But again, just going back to the first part of this, if you don't have a powerful reason why, then it's a house built of sand. It's not gonna work. This has to be personal to you, and you have to believe in it.
Yeah, I mean, what before I mean, many years I've been doing this business and reading books, and they were all saying like, "All right, you should have this, you should have this, you should have this." And I didn't give it much. I didn't give it legs, right? Like I didn't write it down. I didn't do it. And I can tell you the difference between how I work now, with a vision and how I worked before is much different. It's much easy. It's much, much easier and much more fulfilling and much easier to do all those things I don't feel like doing in the moment.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too, the things that you should say no to, things that you should
Oh,
not
yes,
allow to be brought into your life. Um, once you know where you're headed, then it's a lot easier to make those decisions.
absolutely. All right.
All right. This is fun too. So the authors give the thing I like about this book, it is very sensical. It's like it's an easy read. They give you this list of like common pitfalls, success tips. To me it's very easily digestible book. It's not one that you're gonna have to like, spend a lot of time figuring out what they're talking about. Um, so let's just go through the pitfalls first, Libby, and kind of bounce some things back and forth. But this first one here, you don't take the power of vision seriously. I would say to that, don't if you're going to do this wrong if you treat the vision as a homework assignment. Like,
Mm,
oh, I got to go in Chat GPT and get this little vision thing done. So let me see what it says. Input, output. Okay, let me put this on a piece of paper. If you don't take it seriously, if you don't really ask lots of questions about why and get deeper, it's just not going to be relevant to you, and you're not going to be emotionally connected to it.
yeah, I mean, well said. Yeah, I mean that's it. And I didn't
Yeah,
take it seriously for many, many years. I thought, "Oh, well, I don't need that." Yeah.
yeah, and along those lines, the vision isn't meaningful to you. Sometimes you can sort of imagine that other people would give you their vision. Maybe if you're in a corporate institution, it's like the corporate goals are given to you. You don't
Mhm.
have much control over that, obviously. But, or, maybe in other situations, it's people telling you what you need to strive for. But I think in our 12-week year groups, and we've had the WAMs, we've had people who've had very different visions of some of them were trying to find a better I think Samantha was saying a better work-life balance. That was part of
Mhm.
her vision originally because that was a real struggle for her. So
Mhm.
it really has to speak to you.
Yep. The number 3 is my favorite. Your vision is too small, because it can be uncomfortable to write these things down. Like, the first line of my vision statement is, "I live a healthy lifestyle." And at the point I was writing this, I was not living a healthy lifestyle. I was not even close, and it felt, even though that's what I wanted, it felt super uncomfortable to write it and put it in the "I am" statement, and put it as an "I am" statement. Do you know what I like? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like all of these things, like
Mhm.
I am running a profitable business. Sometimes when we don't have these things, it can be very uncomfortable and we feel like we'll never get there, even though it is our vision. I don't know. I think a lot of times we just try to scale it back so it's realistic for where we are in the moment. And that's not what a vision is. It needs to be what you want. It needs to be very expansive. Like, don't put any limits on it, no matter how far you are from your vision.
Absolutely. I think that it could be something that's, 3 to 5 years into the future, and so and also we should say this, this has even come up in our small group is that, you can update your vision. Sometimes
Mhm.
your life situation changes, or maybe like I mentioned Samantha, she said this the other day that she wants to maybe revisit her vision because she feels like maybe she's kind of gotten better on that and she needs to focus on some other things. So I think that's key. And then the last one here, don't connect your vision to your daily actions. This is the key thing. You have to, if you want the vision is kind of like this, uh, where you want to go. And as we've already talked about in this execution system, the 12-week year is really focused on what are you going to do each day and each week that's going to get you to meet the goals. The goals are tied to the vision. So you can kind of see where it all goes. So it has to be connected to your daily actions when you build this out.
Yeah, and I think it's the whole concept of like reverse engineering, right? You have this big vision and then you just reverse engineer it into daily actions. Yeah.
Definitely. All right, so let's hit up the success tips real
Yeah.
fast. Share with others. This one's real simple. I think that again, this idea of accountability, but in our situation, once we kind of understand what someone's vision is, then it helps us to ask good questions in the WAM group and to help people kind of see where they're headed. Stay in touch with your vision. This is something that you showed last week that you have yours printed on a little board. I
Mhm.
have my vision in my Remarkable so that every day if I wanted to, I just click that button and pull it up and I can read it. And it was interesting. The other day I did click on it because I had built one that had like 3 years, 5 years, kind of into the future goals type things. And just revisiting those is very helpful rather than doing that, annually or quarterly or whatever. But
Mhm.
like just kind of like staying in touch with that future version of your life, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, definitely.
And then live with intention is just going to be, again, I think it goes back to the things that we've already heard echoes of. Live in greatness in the moment.
Mhm.
You're trying to make sure that you keep this in mind and that you're going to live every day. And let me mention this too, because I think sometimes when you hear these self-help type things, it all sort of sounds very like foo-foo up in the clouds.
Mhm.
All of us are going to have really bad days, really bad weeks. Without asking you any details before we got on, you shared that you've had a doozy of a 24 or 48 hours in your life, not
Mhm.
necessarily you, but people in your life that you care about. And so we all deal with that. So it's not all going to be perfect. It's not all going to be something that you're, gonna be really happy to share in a small group. But life is life, and sometimes it's hard to make it all roses.
It is.
All right, this is the fun part. Then making the plan. We talked in the beginning here. This second part of the book is really about getting it fired up and going. So we did probably spend a little too much time talking about the vision, but only because Libby and I believe it's very important to tie into here. So now that you're ready to plan your 12-week year, this is kind of the fun part. So your planning allows you to allocate your time and resources to your highest value opportunities and increases your odds of hitting your goals. So we've talked quite a bit about how this works that between 1 and 3 goals, a lot of us in our group are resellers. Of course you don't have to be, but we have tried to tie it in. Most people have, wouldn't you say, Libby, like one business goal and one healthy living goal?
Mhm.
Is that kind of what we
Mhm.
see?
Yep.
Yeah. And that has seemed to work pretty well for us. And so then once you create the goal, which some things, the goal should be a stretch goal, as we've said, it should be realistic, but something that you can achieve. Um, then you have to think of what are the daily activities you're going to do, these actions that you're going to do that are going to help you achieve that goal. And that's really like you're putting the meat and potatoes of this book together, is this idea of these daily actions, weekly actions you're going to do, um, that are going to make all the difference.
Yeah, and we have this maybe sounds overwhelming to do, but we've done this with so many people at this point and coach them through it. Like we are there, we do a coaching session before you start the program where we help you define your goals. Like we've had people come in there with absolutely set goals, and then we've had other people say, "I don't even know where to start." Like this is my vision, this is where I'm headed, and we help break that down. So you're not it does I think it probably sounds overwhelming to some people to like, all right, well, how do I do this plan? No, we have a spreadsheet, we have a tracking system. We got you for this. We'll be able to help you do that. And we've seen what has been successful or not successful in terms of tactics and goals for a lot of different people at this point. Yeah. So we
Yeah, and
got
I
you.
would say too, not
Yeah.
not to scare people off, but some people might sort of assume that like we're asking you to rewire your entire life or something. Absolutely not. This is just you're trying to build some structure so that there's a few things you're going to get done every day, every week that are going to help you achieve these goals. And then the goals each 12-week year are going to build on themselves to get you closer to live into that vision. So it's what we have seen, having lived this the last year of 2025, it is
Hmm.
very doable to make these goals work. So all right, so we've gone to effective plan structure. One other thing I wanted to do in this part of the book, I messaged Libby one day and I told her this is like the best, like page 91. If you just want to read one page in this book, read page 91 because I think this is where the gold is in this book. But one of the things that they talked about on page 91 was they said in a typical annual plan, what we normally do, um, you focus on what you're going to achieve, but you don't focus on how you're going to achieve. And when that how is not clearly defined, that's when you can lose focus, and that's where things sort of fall off the rails. So we're really focusing in on the how. How are you going to do these things? And so they talk about there's 5 criterias for creating your goals and your tactics. This first one, I'm sure that by now everyone's heard of SMART goals, right? So specific and measurable. This
Hmm.
is even in the language, and I would say, shout out to Libby and Consignment Chats. You guys implemented after the first 12-week year, which was a little bit, we're all figuring this out in the
Hmm.
blind. You all implemented a coaching session that's like 10, 15 minutes that each person has to go through to help make sure that the goals that people are using meet this criteria. Um, give us some examples of that because I know you have done so many of these coaching sessions now.
Um, yeah, like somebody would maybe come in and say, all right, well, I want to grow my business. All right, well, how do you want to grow it and how do you want to measure it? Is that going to be by profit? Is it going to be by income? Is it going to be by number of listings you put up? Like what kind of growth do you want to see and what's measurable, right? And so, I'm just going to use listings as an example instead of income. Like how many like I want to grow my store to 500 listings. All right, well, what do you need to do every week? How many do you have to put up and how many sell and like what's the measurable thing there? And it's really that easy. Like, all right, well, let's break that down. Is that, where are you now? How many do you have to do a week? And we can measure that. You can measure that. Yeah. And maybe there's other tactics in there. Maybe you want to start time blocking and you want to do that at the end of every day. And that's going to help you get there. But that's pretty much how we would do that, depending on what your goal is. And the healthy living goals. Sometimes people are want to get so many steps. Sometimes it is weight loss. Sometimes it is sleep. Like there's all sorts of things, and there's all sorts of ways to break that down.
Yeah, and I like that in the authors say that these goals have to start with a verb and they have to be complete sentences. So they have to be kind of action,
Hmm.
statements, which is good. The one in the middle there, they're a realistic stretch. I think that you know you want to make sure that they're reasonable goals because if the goals are too far out, then it will lead you to feel kind of hopeless. And I think that's one thing we saw maybe with some of the goals people put in the first year
Hmm.
was they were so outsized, lose this gigantic amount of weight or whatever it was that it was just it wasn't a stretch goal. It was it was It would have been amazing if they had pulled it off. But it needs to be a stretch goal. Um, and then accountability, we've talked about that a lot. You're the one who can hold yourself accountable, and then be time bound. This kind of gives you that urgency and focus. And again, sort of like what you said. If you said that your goal is to increase sales, well, it's just too vague. That's
Mhm.
not, that's not going to work. So it has to be very specific and measurable, and you have to be able to define each week, am I doing the tactics that are going to get me towards this defined example of what the increased sales is. And I'm sure you've seen lots of examples of that in our group.
Yeah, and I think that's where the group really comes in, right? Like you set your goals, you're holding yourself accountable, and you meet with a group and they say, "Well, maybe, I see you're really struggling with getting getting that number of listings up a day. What's your hold up? What's really the problem there? Is it realistic?" And kind of, helping each other through that. Nobody's there to hold you accountable. Everybody is there to support you and figure out like why it's not working the way it should. What can we do differently? And it's not really about group accountability. It's about you holding yourself accountable and other people helping or providing input or pointing things out, because sometimes when you're so close to something you can't see it. So I think the group is really fantastic for that.
So to strip it down, let me just kind of lay this idea out. Another give you another analogy here
Yeah.
is that the 12-week goal that you're going to come up with is a bridge. Maybe I should have put that in there instead of a little Jason building a brick wall. But the idea of a bridge between your vision and your 12-week plan. And so that's how you're going to get from here to there, is by doing these tactics and achieving those goals. Um, let's go to the last
Oh,
slide
I
for
like that
today.
bridge. Yes, that's good.
Yeah, bridge. That's a good one. I should have worked that in. Um, so this is another one that, because we've gone through this now for 4 cycles, or we're in the middle of our fourth cycle, we have kind of seen some of these things already creep up in our group. And so, we have kind of lived them, some of us especially.
Mhm.
Um, and so the first one here, your 12-week plan does not align with your long-term vision. And we talked a lot in this talk about vision, so I don't think that's as one that I want to harp on. But let me go to the second one. You aren't staying focused. Oh, I love how the authors get into this conversation about what's things that are urgent but not important. And it goes right back to my another book study we did, talking about the 7 habits and quadrant 4 activities, and that's getting off on a tangent. But essentially, what it's saying is that you have to focus on not the email that comes in, the telephone call, the notification, all the distractions that come into your day or your week. You've got to focus on what is important, and that's what's going to keep you on track, is staying focused on the goals that you've set, the tactics that you have hold yourself accountable to do. That's really important.
Yeah, when you figure every week is a month and every day is a week when you're doing the 12-week year, it's hard not to stay focused because you just have this time-bound thing. Yeah.
So number 3, I'm guilty, so guilty of this. You don't make the tough choices. I've said this last week. In one of my 12-week years, I had like 14 tactics and 3 different goals. And I was going to start this new store, and I was going to have this going on, and I was going to do and all these great things. And I couldn't even keep track of them. It was so complicated. I couldn't even figure out each week, did I actually do that on Tuesday? I don't know if I did it or not.
Mhm.
So making the tough choices sometimes is also about narrowing it down and realizing you can't do everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like number 4,
Um,
keep it simple, right? Like it is
yeah,
simple. Like a lot of us have, some people have one goal, right? Let's say it's to make,
that's right.
$40,000 this quarter or this year, 12-week year. And maybe the thing is I need to list $2,000 in inventory a day. Whatever it is, I don't know. But I mean, and that's it. Like, that's as simple as you can go for your 12. It doesn't have to be, it shouldn't be complicated. Like you can scale it down to bare bones. And that's where we've really seen people with the most success is really like, this is what I
Mhm.
need to do. It doesn't need to be 10,000 things. Cause I think, I'm not sure why. I think we all feel like that, right? Like, I want to do this, and these are the 14 things I need to do. And sometimes it's just not that complicated.
Yeah, I'll kind of wrap this up with one little statement from the book, which
Yeah.
I think summarizes exactly what you just said. When everything is a priority, nothing is a priority. So it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You can't make everything be the number one. So we're saying focus on one or three things that you can achieve in 12 weeks, and they should be stretch goals, but not crazy. And then you're going to come up with a list of daily and weekly activities. And by the way, let me give this example as we're kind of wrapping up. So,
Yeah.
literally today is a holiday, and so my family is kind of thrown off schedule a little bit. We didn't all wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning like we normally have to get the school day started. So we slept in. So already today, I have missed the YMCA. Now, I do have in my goal, I only have to go 4 times a week. So I do have kind of a mulligan day built in. But I'm also thinking about I could go later today and just go and walk the treadmill and everything and get all my stuff done. So, but the priority for me is just making sure that I get that goal done. So even though my normal routine is kind of thrown off today, I have kind of a backup plan for making this work. And the reason why I'm holding myself accountable is I know what my vision is, I know where I'm trying to go, and I
Mhm.
realize that taking a day off is sort of like admitting defeat, and I don't want to do that. I want to continue this streak of marching that goal off. So anyways, for what it's worth, I'm confessing here on YouTube that even as I'm giving this talk, I am not 100% perfect on my 12-week year.
Yeah. And I had a snowstorm derail me this morning. Like the roads were covered. I didn't do my normal thing, but like I also have a 4-day thing. So I'm like, all right, well, you know what? That's okay. Tomorrow will be a new day. And
Yeah.
it's totally doable. Yeah. All
So
right.
next week we're going to kind of wrap up the book. We're really going to focus. We've mentioned a lot of these things. We've mentioned the scorecard. We've mentioned the WAM group. We've mentioned a lot of the things that will be the focus of next week's talk, and that'll kind of wrap it up for us. But again, as Libby has described, we're doing this YouTube video here just to kind of introduce the book and talk about our experiences with it. But there is a group within Consignment Chats that's doing this together, as we described, a weekly accountability meeting, the WAM meeting. And if that's something you're interested in for 2026, moving ahead, or whenever you're watching this, YouTube things tend to live a long time. You can check in with Consignment Chats and see what the next group is, and if you can get in on that. So, Libby, I'll let you kind of wrap it up for us.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to next week putting it all together. We will have the sign up for the reseller intensive program in the show notes next week. We will be announcing that it is by application because there are certain things that you will need to do in order to be a part of the program. And we just want to share this with all of you because it has been such an amazing journey for so many of us. And I'm excited to have some new people and some new members to share this amazing journey with. Yeah.
All right. Well,
All right.
just to be honest, in about 15 minutes, we have our WAM group for this week, and I need to get into our spreadsheet and put my numbers in, hold myself accountable.
Oh, you better
So
get going then. All
I
right
know
then.
we better
Yeah.
sign off. I don't want to again. If you're gonna be bold enough to do like a little video here, you got to like actually do what you're supposed to
Gotta
do. So
walk
I
the
gotta
walk.
I gotta
Greatness in the
walk the
moment,
walk.
Jason. You could do it.
Sorry, I'm gonna do it.
All right. You got a drink? Well, cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.